for an extraordinary Congress. Each country has one vote. So whether you're Spain, the world champion, or whether you're San Marino, you would need at least a simple majority vote. So if you have 211 member associations and say 180 of them attend that meeting, then you would need at least you would need more than 90 votes to remove him. Europe is against him. They unanimously voted. They have 55 members, and it was a 55-0 vote to unanimously support UEFA's position against Infantino. Asia has 47 members, but they're a bit fractured at the moment, even though the AFC joined UEFA in support against Infantino. There are a few members which are not basically backing the AFC. CONCACAF, which is the North Central American and the Caribbean countries, they're against Infantino. But then you have CAF, which is the African Confederation, which appears to be Infantino's biggest voting bloc. You have CONMEBOL, which is a South American confederation, saying they won't really try and oust him. They prefer a democratic vote to see who the next president is. So Infantino is looking to get re-elected next year in March. That is probably the most consequential governance battle, I would say, in FIFA's history, because if the no confidence vote does go against him, it would set a precedent because it's never happened before in FIFA's history.
A religious leader in Iran is calling for gasoline conservation and better power management. Mohammad Nabi Musawafard, the Friday prayer leader of AHVAZ, says gasoline is a complex wartime issue. He says it is unacceptable to raise concerns about fuel while enemies seek to destroy the Islamic Republic. Musawafard also urged the government to address electricity outages in Khuzestan province, noting it is one of the hottest places on earth. Oman and Iran are discussing ways to restore smooth navigation through the Strait of HORMUZ. Oman's state news agency reports that Foreign Minister Badr bin Hamad al-Busaidi met with his Iranian counterpart Abbas Araghchi. The two officials discussed the conditions for resuming negotiations to ensure free movement through the strategic waterway. They also addressed broader regional security and the need for practical agreements to stabilize the area. Intelligence officials warn that advanced military capabilities could soon leak into Gaza, the Jordanian border, and the West Bank. Reports indicate that Hamas and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine are attempting to acquire drones and fiber optic cables for military communications. Officials say the groups are trying to obtain this equipment through media organizations and international reconstruction agencies operating within Gaza. Prince Reza Pahlavi is traveling to Canada at the invitation of Pierre Palou. The two plan to discuss ways to support the liberation of Iran and increase pressure on the Islamic Republic. While in Canada, the prince will attend the Cyrus II event in Toronto on September 19th. That date marks the 4th anniversary of the death of Mahsa Amini, who was killed by the Iranian state. Scott Bessent is making headlines for past comments regarding California Governor Gavin Newsom. During a previous appearance at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Bessent criticized the governor for attending the event with Alex Soros. Bessent claimed it was ironic that Newsom might know less about economics than Vice President Kamala Harris. He further described the governor as a mix of the fictional character Patrick Bateman and Sparkle Beach Ben.
Very ironic that Governor Newsom, who strikes me as Patrick Bateman meets Sparkle Beach Ken, may be the only Californian who knows less about economics than Kamala Harris. He's here this week with his billionaire sugar daddy, Alex Soros, and Davos is a perfect place for a man who, when everyone else was on lockdown, when he was having people arrested for going to church, he was having $1,000 a night meals at the French Laundry, and I'm sure the California people won't forget that. And I can tell my message to Governor Newsom is the Trump administration is coming to California. We are going to crack down on waste, fraud, and abuse. And I was told he was asked to give a speech on his signature policies, but he's not speaking because what have his economic policies brought? Outward migration from California, a gigantic budget deficit, the largest homeless population in America, and the poor folks in the Palisades who had their homes burned down. He is here hobnobbing with the global elite while his California citizens are still homeless. Shame on him. He is too smug, too self-absorbed, and too economically illiterate to know anything.
Thank you very much.
Let me know if you need any further clarification.
But I'm going to remind everyone in this room and all the media that I was the subject of an assassination attempt February 2024 by an addled left-wing activist 2 hours after being sworn into my job. So any of you who want to report that this is a fiction and does not exist, be there for the sentencing this August. So good morning. Thank you, Secretary Rubio, for convening this.
Paula Froelich says there isn't much left for Meghan Markle and Montecito. Froelich claims only 2 non-famous friends publicly wished the Duchess a happy birthday. She predicts that social dynamic would change quickly if the Sussexes return to their roles as working royals.
So there's a lot of reason why he wants to go back. There's a lot of reason why she needs to go back. Her Hollywood friends have fallen by the wayside. This year, only 2 friends who are not famous wished her a happy birthday publicly. Serena Williams has gone by the wayside. Oprah no longer calls. You have other people who are excited. Beyonce is not texting them anymore. If Meghan and Harry go back, become royals again, trust me, those people will call and text. And once again, the Sussexes will be bankable. Now there, of course, again, has been the public back and forth between Harry and the palace over security concerns and accommodations. He is hoping he will get permanent security by moving back to the UK. Also, of course, he wants to spend more time with his father, King Charles, who is suffering from cancer.
Polish member of the European Parliament Dominik Tarczyński is defending his support for remigration policies. When asked why he supports the move, Tarczyński pointed to safety concerns. He stated that Poland has 0 illegal migrants and said he wants his future daughter to be safe from rape and murder. Fans and loved ones are paying tribute to actress Hayden Panettiere today. She would have been 37 years old on August 21st. The tributes come as investigators continue to look into the circumstances surrounding the star's death. Details on that investigation are still emerging. Ohio Secretary of State John Husted is speaking out against the loss of American manufacturing. During a visit to Middletown, Husted shared a personal story about his father losing a machine tool factory job. He blamed the job loss on policymakers who voted to export manufacturing to China. Husted says the America First agenda is now working to reverse those trends and bring jobs back to the state.
So I want to share something with you, because I imagine a lot of you don't know this. But if you look back, I remember when I was growing up in Ohio, and in the 80s and 90s, and this state was dying. It really was. My family experienced it firsthand. My dad worked at a machine tool factory called Mohawk Tools. I worked 3rd shift there as well. I probably am the only guy in the U.S. Senate that's ever worked 3rd shift in a factory. But I remember the day that my dad told me that his job was going away and that my whole family was going to have to leave Ohio because there was no place to go to work in the little town I grew up. It was a tough day. He was being strong for our family. I could hear it in his voice. But he was also worried about his family, because it wasn't just his job that went away. It was 2 of my uncles and my aunt as well who worked there. And in a town of 4,000, when you lose 400 jobs, that's a big deal. There's no place to go to work. There's nobody to sell your house to. There's not a lot of hope about that future. And the reason that happened is because of American policymakers. There were people in this country over time that thought it was okay to send our jobs to China, get back cheap products in return, and weaken, basically export American manufacturing. And they voted for policies that made that happen. that affected families like mine, families like I'm sure many of you, from Youngstown to Cincinnati, everywhere across the state. Ohio was struggling. Ohio was truly struggling. But today is a new day. It truly is. It's a new day because of the America First agenda, because we've turned Ohio into a state that's now ranked the #1 state in the country to do business. We used to be 34th, now we're #1 again. We've added in this state 3,000 manufacturing jobs. I remember when there were presidents who were saying, candidates for presidents, that manufacturing's dead, manufacturing jobs are gone, manufacturing's not coming back to America. They were wrong. We can bring back manufacturing to this great country in places like Middletown and across places across our great state. And it's important. And why is it important that we do this? Investments like this, $1 billion investment right here. Because it's job security. It's economic security. It is national security. You have to be able to make the things that are essential for your economic and national security if you want to be a great nation. Don't you need to do that? Exactly right. We've got to do those things. We can do it in Ohio, and we're doing it right here in Middletown. Now, I'm proud to have played a small role in this, because I know when I took the oath of office and I said I was going to fight for you, this is the kind of thing, this is what the America First agenda is. It's about places like this. It's about investments like this, but making sure that we have the energy we need.
Vice President J.D. Vance is speaking today in his hometown of Middletown, Ohio. The Vice President is delivering remarks in the community where he has long-standing ties. We are bringing you those comments live. The foreign ministers of Oman and Iran are discussing ways to resume negotiations over the Strait of HORMUZ. In a telephone call reported by the Oman news agency, Badr bin Hamad al-Busaidi and Abbas Araghchi emphasized the need for continued talks. Both officials say the goal is to restore freedom of navigation and ensure stability and security throughout the region. New evidence is emerging regarding the Iranian government's response to the January protests. An audio recording obtained by Iran International reveals conversations between security forces during the unrest. The recording suggests the government stationed military personnel and suppression equipment inside mosques across Tehran. Mohsen Mohayyamini of Iran International's editorial board is breaking down the details of the leaked file.
در آسمون ها سعی کردن با پهپاد نقاط مختلف جمعیت رو شناسایی بکنن. ارسال پهپاد روی آسمون تهران. بعضیا گفتن گاز اعصاب که اثراتشون رو روی بدنشون دیدن. از مخبرین محلی استفاده میکردن برای اینکه بعداً بتونن شناسایی بکنن افراد رو. سوراخ‌موش. در این فایل بیسیم شنیدیم که دپوکت شدن نیروهاشون و ادواتشون داخل مسجدی که ما شناسایی کردیم در غرب تهران، تقاطع ستاری و مخبری.
بعد داشته باش خیابان ورزش حمدانی بچه‌ها درگیر شدن. بله 51 ما رو 51 تماس گرفتن گفتن چند نفر ریختن مسجد حسین بن علی. یه آمار میگیرید ببینید صحیح است یا نه. آقا ما گلزار رو زدیم ولی جمعیت تو کوچه هاست. جمعیت داره زیاد میشه. علت ازدحام جمعیت امکان داخل شدن به جمعیت نداریم. بله ستاد 503 بذارت گذارش نیگاه به کشونی تو مسجد نواسه سرساری حاکی بقیه که بهشون حمله شده دارن شیشه‌های مسجد رو خورد می‌کنن.
خود نیروهای حکومت جلوی مسجد وا می‌ایستادن با مردم شروع می‌کردن گفتگو که بیان جمع بشن بعد از اونجا از داخل مسجد بهشون حمله بکنن یا استتار می‌کردن و سعی می‌کردن داخل مسجد با دوربین‌هاشون از جمعیت فیلمبرداری بکنن که مساجد رو به آتش می‌کشیدن که این رو به گردن معترضان بندازن. بلوار کاشانی هم خود نیروها رو آوردن داخلش مستقر کردن که اون به عنوان پایگاه فریب و کشتار بزرگ مردم ازش استفاده بشه. جمعیت رو ببینید.
A teenager has pleaded guilty to an arson attack on the London offices of Iran International. The news outlet is known for its critical coverage of the Iranian government. Prosecutors say the teen targeted the building in a deliberate attempt to cause damage. The case is now moving towards sentencing. Canadian Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is reaffirming his support for the Iranian people to break free from the Islamic Republic. Poilievre spoke with Prince REZA Pahlavi during a recent video call. The two discussed ways to achieve a free Iran, including maintaining internet access and using frozen assets to support the Iranian people. Poilievre says he will meet with the prince in person during an upcoming trip to Toronto.
Well, Crown Prince, it's a real honor to be back with you. I have fond memories of meeting you in person when you were in Canada several years back, and we continue to support the efforts of you and your followers to promote a free Iran, to defeat this horrendous, tyrannical dictatorship, and to give Iran back to the Iranian people. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in Canada. I know that you'll get a very warm welcome, and I look forward to embracing, shaking your hand, and discussing the bright future ahead.
I would like to, and I think on behalf of many of my fellow compatriots, thank you for all your strong support and words of encouragement. I look forward to meeting with you when we see each other, hopefully soon in Toronto, and discuss further in what way can we achieve at the end helping the Iranian people liberate themselves. So I look forward to that. And again, I wanted to thank you for this opportunity and all of your support and your strong words of encouragement and support.
Thank you very much, Crown Prince. Many blessings to you, and we'll see you in Toronto very soon.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, sir.
All right.
A former U.S. Treasury official says the United Arab Emirates will be key to increasing pressure on Iran's economy. Mayad Maleki says the UAE will play a vital role in countering hidden banking transactions if Washington implements new sanctions. The goal would be to further restrict the Islamic Republic's ability to move money secretly. Ohio Secretary of State John HUSTED is speaking out against the loss of American manufacturing. During a visit to Middletown, HUSTED shared a personal story about his father losing a machine tool factory job. He blamed the job loss on policymakers who voted to export manufacturing to China. HUSTED says the America First agenda is now working to reverse those trends and bring jobs back to the state.
So I want to share something with you, because I imagine a lot of you don't know this. But if you look back, I remember when I was growing up in Ohio, and in the 80s and 90s, and this state was dying. It really was. My family experienced it firsthand. My dad worked at a machine tool factory called Mohawk Tools. I worked third shift there as well. I probably am the only guy in the U.S. Senate that's ever worked third shift in a factory. But I remember the day that my dad told me that his job was going away and that my whole family was going to have to leave Ohio because there was no place to go to work in the little town I grew up in. It was a tough day. He was being strong for our family. I could hear it in his voice. But he was also worried about his family, because it wasn't just his job that went away. It was two of my uncles and my aunt as well who worked there. And in a town of 4,000, when you lose 400 jobs, that's a big deal. There's no place to go to work. There's nobody to sell your house to. There's not a lot of hope about that future. And the reason that happened is because of American policymakers. There were people in this country over time that thought it was okay to send our jobs to China, get back cheap products in return, and weaken, basically export American manufacturing. And they voted for policies that made that happen, that affected families like mine, families like I'm sure many of you, from Youngstown to Cincinnati, everywhere across the state. Ohio was struggling. Ohio was truly struggling. But today is a new day. It truly is. It's a new day because of the America First agenda, because we've turned Ohio into a state that's now ranked the #1 state in the country to do business. We used to be 34th. Now we're #1 again. We've added in this state 3,000 manufacturing jobs. I remember when there were presidents who were saying, candidates for presidents, that manufacturing's dead, manufacturing jobs are gone, manufacturing's not coming back to America. They were wrong. We can bring back manufacturing to this great country in places like Middletown and across places across our great state. And it's important. And why is it important? that we do this. Investments like this, $1 billion investment right here. Because it's job security. It's economic security. It is national security. You have to be able to make the things that are essential for your economic and national security if you want to be a great nation. Don't you need to do that? Exactly right. We've got to do those things. We can do it in Ohio, and we're doing it right here in Middletown. Now, I'm proud to have played a small role in this, because I know when I took the oath of office and I said I was going to fight for you, this is the kind of thing, this is what the America First agenda is. It's about places like this. It's about investments like this, but making sure that we have the energy we need.
Israel's security establishment is raising concerns over recent statements made by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the defense minister. Officials from the IDF and Mossad say the rhetoric is increasing tensions with both Turkey and Syria. Details on the specific statements causing the alarm have not been released. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian says it is time to end the conflict with the United States. The president claims the Islamic Republic is now in a position of strength. At the same time, Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf is warning that the government cannot survive if the people remain hungry. These comments raise questions about whether the executive and legislative branches are aligned on the government's overall strategy. Political analyst Ada Mohammed joins us now to discuss these developments.
عطا محمد تحلیلگر روابط بین الملل از بارسلون در اسپانیا با ما هستن. خوش آمدید آقای.
At least 15 Ukrainian civilians are dead and more than 100 others are wounded following a Russian attack in Kryvyi Rih. Officials say the strike targeted a shopping mall using a double-tap drone tactic. This involves a second strike hitting the same location shortly after the first to target first responders. Emergency crews are still working at the scene. Details on the full extent of the damage are still emerging. Analyst Ada Mohammed joins us now to discuss these developments.
عطا محمد تحلیلگر روابط بین الملل از بارسلون در اسپانیا با ما هستن. خوش آمدید آقای محمد. به نظر میرسه که دست کم تا اینجا رؤسای مجلس و دولت میخواند که به نوعی جنگ رو خاتمه بدن، ولی چقدر این موضع و اینها و خاص اونها موضع کل نظامه؟ چون همین حالا ما شاهد هستیم که دوباره فراخوان‌های داده میشه برای تجمعات شبانه خیابانی.
سلام. بذارید از اینجا شروع کنیم که یه اتفاقی داره انگار میفته که چند پایه داره. از یه طرف ما پزشکیان رو داریم که نماینده کسانی است که از دریچه صلح حرف میزنن، یعنی کسانی که فکر میکنند که این دریچه صلح اکنون باز شده و باید نسبت بهش اقدام کرد. مثلا محمد جواد ظریف هم از جمله این گروهی که فکر میکنن الان اگر توافقی صورت بگیره توافق برنده است. به یک طرف دیگه ای داریم مثل قالیباف که مسئله امنیت و اقتصاد رو دارن به هم گره میزنن و تلاش میکنند که بگند آنچه پیش روی ایران هست احتمالاً شورش های جمعی است. باز تنها قالیباف نیست که ما اقتصاددان‌های بسیاری یا جامعه شناسان بسیاری هم داریم که دارن از این حرف میزنن. حتی برخی از برنامه‌های شبکه افق هم راجع به این موضوع. اما امروز دو گزاره دیگر هم داشتیم. یکی سرپرست وزارت دفاع رو داشتیم که در مجلس حرف میزد. او به نکته اشاره کرد که باید تاباوری نظامی ایران افزایش پیدا کنه و بودجه پایدار داشته باشه. به نظر میاد جوری که حرف زد یا حداقل خبرگزاری‌ها اون رو منتشر کردن نشون میده که با این دو واقعه مشکل دارن. از طرف دیگه امام جمعه ها امروز هم حرف زدن و امام جمعه ها به نوعی تشویق میکردن بر سر این که باید از دولت حمایت کرد، مثل دشکام امام جمعه شیراز. اما در مقابل این چهار پایه که داره از زاویه های مختلفی میگه که مسئله هایی در نظم سیاسی و نظامی به وجود اومده که باید این رو مدیریت کرد، که ادعی معتقدند که این فرصت برای ایران هم پیش روست که بتونه از این موقعیتی که در آمریکا مثلا دوچار افزایش بدهی ها شده ازش استفاده کرد، تورم رو به اونها تحمیل کرد.
خب ولی
امروز مثلا نبویان هم
معذرت میخوام این کلمه تا از اینجا رد نشدین، میخوام اینو بپرسم اگر واقعا ایران بخواد که از این موقعیت استفاده کنه باید از یه چیزایی دست بکشه، از جمله تنگه هرمز. واقعا ایران میخواد که در این حد عقب نشینی کنه؟
همه این کسایی که حرف زدیم راجبشون، چه دژکان باشه چه پزشکیان قالیباف، اتفاقا در یک موضوع اتفاق نظر دارن و اون اینه که عقب نشینی از تنگه هرمز عقب نشینی از بقیه خواسته هاست. یه باوری در جمهوری اسلامی وجود داره که آمریکا به دنبال تغییر رفتاره و تغییر رفتار یعنی تغییر نظم سیاسی و این رو خامنه ای هم سید علی خامنه ای هم این رو راجبش هم حرف زده بود، هم بارها گفته بود که تن به خواسته های اونها نمیدیم و الان جمهوری اسلامی موقعیت رو گره زده به تنگه هرمز و باور داره که اگر از تنگه هرمز بگذره بعد از مابقی چیزهایی هم که داره بگذره و به دنبال یه طرح یا نقشه‌ای هستن که بتونن تنگه هرمز رو حفظ کنن و در این حال بتونن به مابقی خواسته هاشون برسن.
همه حالا ما داریم میبینیم که به نظر میاد مذاکرات ایران و عمان بر سر تنگه هرمز به نتیجه نرسیده، اینطور که بعضی خبرگزاری ها گزارش دادن، به ویژه بعد از تهدیدهای دونالد ترامپ و ایران نتونسته طرح جایگزینی تا اینجا برای تنگه هرمز داشته باشه. چه امتیازی میتونه از آمریکا بگیره؟
طبیعتا اون چیزی که مهمه اینجا اینه که آنچه با عمان داره صحبت میشه معنای این نیست که با آمریکا اتفاق خواهد افتاد. هم بقایی هم عراقچی رو به این تاکید کرده بودن که گفتگوها با عمان دو طرفه است و مبنی بر رفت و آمد یا یک گفتگوی فنیه، ولی در مورد آمریکا به نظر میاد آمریکا اتفاقا در این لحظه ای که داره میبینه فشارها گسترش پیدا کردن فرصت گسترده تری روی او به وجود اومده و میخواد که این فشارهای خودش رو حتی بیشتر کنه، چون آنچه وضعیت اقتصادی جمهوری اسلامی داره بیشتر مستهلک میکنه این نظم سیاسی رو. به خاطر همین هم کلام بسنت یا ونس رو وقتی گوش میکنیم از این حرف میزنه که این فشار عمیق‌تره. یکی از طرح‌هایی که پیش از جنگ وجود داشت این بود که وارد جنگ میشن و بعد مقاطعی رو به وجود میارن، یعنی یه وضعیت سینوسی و در این مقاطع فشار اقتصادی رو بیشتر میکنن و یکی از باورها این بود که این عمل میکنه. به نظر میاد که آمریکا رفته به سمت همین طرح و داره اون رو اجرا میکنه و احتمال اینکه این رو به سمت ابعاد زمینی هم ببره خیلی گسترده تره، یعنی این تلاشایی که دارن در عراق هم میکنن به این سمت میره و فکر میکنن که جواب میگه. اما طرف ایرانی باور داره که اگر از این موقعیتی که در اون قرار داره بگذره، مخصوصا کسانی مثل نبوی ایدهشون اینه که داره انگار که جمهوری اسلامی میخواد تسلیم بشه. در این بحران میشه بگیم که جمهوری اسلامی فعلا مانده و تصمیم نهایی رو نگرفتن.
Vice President Kamala Harris visited Middletown today. During her stop, the vice president spoke about her family's roots in the community. She noted that her grandfather worked as a welder in the area for 40 years. Harris called it an amazing thing to return to the town as the vice president of the United States.
You all know my story. I look at what you all are wearing, and I remember my papaw going to work in an outfit not all that different and coming to this very place to work for nearly 40 years as a welder at what was then Armco Steel. And I can't help but think about the last time a James Vance stood in this very place. He had spent nearly 40 years as a welder at Armco Steel, now, of course, Middletown Works of Cleveland Cliffs. He was not an educated man by any means, but he was a brilliant one. He was a complicated man, a man of faith who never went to church. He was an alcoholic since middle school, but he quit cold turkey as a grandfather. But if he was a complicated man on the inside, he was a man with very simple ambitions. He didn't want to get rich. He had no desire to build a business. That's not who my papaw was. His American dream was well-fed kids, a car engine to tinker with. He loved to build out cars, a lukewarm cup of coffee, never cold, never hot, and of course a donut from either Central Pastry or Milton's Donuts. That was his American dream. I went to Central Pastry today because, of course, I had to go get an ugly donut while I was in town. And the ladies behind the counter, they said, "You've lost way too much weight. What's going on?" And I said, "Well, I don't have a Central Pastry in Washington, D.C. That's what's going on." My papaw, it's funny, he voted in every election. He loved this country, but he did not care for politics. Now, back then, he said that Democrats were the party of union men, so he usually voted Democrat. But he thought way too many politicians were just plain old corrupt, and he was right. All he asked for from his political leaders was very simple: He asked that his taxes be reasonable. He asked that his community be safe. He asked that our politicians ensure that there were good jobs for men and women who are willing to work for them. And he asked that America never be asked to be the policeman of the world. Now, he was my grandfather. I called him Papaw. And he toiled in this very place to give our family the little extras, like I said, for nearly 4 decades. Now, I'm very honored because the welders of this facility made me this incredible, beautiful artisan plaque to commemorate me coming here. And those of you who don't know, Papaw was a welder, so it's particularly meaningful for me and for all the welders behind me and in front of me. Thank you all. It means a great deal. But Papaw was a welder in this place for 40 years. And today his grandson stands here as the Vice President of these United States. It's an amazing thing.
At least 14 people are dead and more than 120 others are wounded following a Russian drone attack on a shopping mall in Kryvyi Rih. Officials say at least 121 people were injured in the strike. Emergency crews are still searching the rubble for multiple people who remain missing. Senator J.D. Vance is criticizing decades of U.S. policy toward domestic manufacturing. Speaking at an Ohio steel mill, the senator argued that for 40 years, leaders dismissed American industry as sentimental. He says those officials instead pushed for market integration with third-world nations to take advantage of low wages and a lack of benefits. Vance claims that anyone proposing tariffs or strict immigration policies to protect American jobs was labeled as backwards and wrong.
Ignored this place. He hated the people who saw this as the place of the past. He hated the people who forgot about this town when they should have been fighting for this town. And the unfortunate reality is that they came from both political parties. And they spent the last 40 years telling you it didn't matter if we made things right here or whether we made them in overseas countries. They said it was irrational, sentimental, old-fashioned to want to preserve the things that make the United States of America special. What we really needed, they said, was to compete and have complete market integration with every nation of the third world. Places where you could pay wages at pennies on the dollar, but didn't have to give your workers health care or good benefits in the process. And anytime somebody dared to put an obstacle in front of that set of ideas, anytime they said, you know what, we need to put tariffs or tough immigration policies to stop that, those people were called backwards, they were called wrong. Now in 1984, just to date myself a little bit, don't hate me, 1 month before I was born, the Wall Street Journal, the voice of big business in the United States of America, proposed, and I quote, a 5-word constitutional amendment. There shall be open borders. Now they weren't joking. They weren't being tongue-in-cheek. Because if you look at what they tried to do over the next 40 years, they told you back then exactly what they were trying to do.
The State Department has approved the potential sale of tactical missiles to South Korea. The deal involves AIM-9X Sidewinder Block II missiles and related equipment. The total value of the sale is estimated at $125 million. RTX Corporation will serve as the prime contractor for the agreement. Meteorologists are warning that a developing El Niño weather system could become one of the largest in modern history. Some experts say it may be the most severe since the 19th century. Climatologist and environmental expert Mazer Karimi joins us now to explain what this means and whether we should be concerned.
ناصر کرمی اقلیم شناس و کارشناس محیط زیست از اسلو پایتخت نروژ با ما هستن. خوش آمدید آقای کرمی. سوالی که الان وجود داره اینه که آیا واقعا باید نگران یک النینیوی بزرگ و نگران کننده باشیم؟
درود بر شما. ببینید اینکه نگران باید باشیم باید بستگی به این داره که در کجای دنیا زندگی کنیم. یعنی این یک رخداد بزرگ اقلیمیه که در یه جای خشکسالی ایجاد میکنه، در یه جای سیل ایجاد میکنه، در یه جایی هم ممکنه که شرایط بهتری ایجاد بکنه. مثلا ما میدونیم که این یک سوپر النینیوی بسیار قویه، این میتونه خیلی نگران کنه مثلا اهالی که استرالیا رو، اهالی خیلی کشورهای جنوب شرقی آسیا رو، اونجا ممکنه خشکسالی باشه، بارش رخ نده. در یه جاهایی مثل شرق قاره آفریقا یا اون بخش جنوبی قاره آمریکای جنوبی ممکنه بارش زیاد و سیلاب ایجاد بکنه، یعنی اونا به یک شکل دیگه باید نگران باشن. اما برای کشور ما مثلا روندها و چیز کلی این هست که تصور ما اینه که بارش رو بهتر خواهد کرد در پاییز و در زمستان و همین خاطر شاید برای کشور ما خبر خوبی باشه اتفاقا.
آیا میشه جلوی این پدیده رو گرفت یا اینکه دیگه زمان از دست رفته؟
ببینید واقعیتش اینه که النینیو بسیار پدیده رازآمیز و عجیبیه، یعنی هنوزم با دقت اقلیم شناسا نمیتونن بگن چرا از حدود چند هزار سال پیش، یعنی مثلا حالا بین 5000 تا 7000 سال پیش، چرا النینیو این پدیده شروع میکنه به شدت گرفتن، جلوتر میاد. برخی میگفتن خب مربوط به تغییرات اقلیمی و دی اکسید کربن و ایناست، ولی خب مثلا 2000 3000 سال پیش که اصلا بشر چنین تأثیری نداشته، ما نمیدونیم. این یک پدیده بزرگ اقلیمیه. چیزی که میدونیم اینه که هرچی ما جلوتر اومدیم این شدت وقوعش بیشتر بوده. یعنی مثلا اینجور فرض کنید قبلا 10 سال 15 سال 20 سال یه بار بوده، الان هر 2 سال یک بار رخ میده و داره هم شدیدتر میشه. مثلا همین النینیویی که توی حضرت علی هم اشاره کردید، این النینیو پیش بینی میشه که شاید بزرگترین النینیویی باشه که از زمان ثبت داده‌های هواشناختی داره ثبت میشه از قرن 19 به این ور و خب ما نگران النینیوهای بعدی هستیم که قوی‌تر خواهند بود و خواهند اومد. تنها کاری که میتونیم بکنیم اینه که خودمون رو باش منطبق کنیم، یعنی بپذیریم که دیگه این یک زندگی و یک سرنوشت تازه است. این النینیو یه نکته رو من اشاره بکنم، یک پدیده‌ای که حالا اونجا بگیم بحث نگرانی، ما فاز مثبت 2 قطبی اقیانوس هند هم داره شکل میگیره. اینم برای خودش حرف برای گفتن داره. ما که این دو تا سوپر النینیویی که از آمریکای جنوبی میاد به این بر و این فاز 2 قطبی اقیانوس هند با هم تلاقی میکنن، میتونه باعث بشه که شما حالا به عنوان روزنامه‌نگار بسیار از ماه نوامبر به بعد، از دسامبر به بعد دیگه رخدادهای شدید اقلیمی، اینجا سیل، اونجا طوفان، اینجا گردباد، دیگه به بخش ثابتی از اخبار روزنامه‌ها تبدیل خواهد شد.
چقدر نقش داشته تصمیم گیری دولت‌ها در این پدیده، به دلیل اینکه خب خیلی کشورها همکاری نکردن برای این قضیه؟ اگه کوتاه بتونید بفرمایید.
واقعیتش اینه که شما که میدونید همچین رخدادی داره رخ میده، میاد آماده سازی میکنید. مثلا توی خود کشور ما الان میدونیم، از الان هشدارش داده شده که سیل خواهد اومد، به خصوص در بخش به حساب دامنه غربی زاگرس، در جایی از جنوب البرز، اینها در جنوب کشور اینها. اما اینکه حالا از الان برن مثلا حریم رودخونه ها رو آزاد کنن، مسیل ها رو آزاد کنن، این کارهایی که باید دولت ها انجام بدن، از قبل آماده بشن. خب بعضیا میکنن، بعضیا نمیکنن و شما همیشه میبینید که ما چیزی به نام غافلگیری اقلیمی نداریم. ببینید از همین الان معلومه نوامبر چی میشه، دسامبر چی میشه، زمستان چی میشه. اونهایی که خودشون رو آماده میکنن، وقت میدن، کمتر زیان خواهند دید.
خیلی متشکرم ازتون ناصر کرمی، اقلیم شناس کارشناس محیط زیست.
Vice President Kamala Harris says the American heartland is seeing a surge of rebuilding. The vice president claims trillions of dollars in new investments have poured into the United States over the last 18 months. According to Harris, that funding is being used to build new manufacturing facilities, smelters, and mills across the country.
I'm not saying it's going to be easy or it's all going to happen overnight, but in just 18 months, we have seen an explosion of rebuilding in the American heartland. We have seen trillions, with a T, trillions of new dollars of investment pour into the United States of America to build new smelters, build new manufacturing facilities, build new mills, build new everything. Under President Trump's leadership, factory construction employment has exploded. We've added 83,000 factory construction jobs just since Inauguration Day. And as companies break new ground on new facilities and they start building new assembly lines, imports for capital goods are reaching historic peaks. Because when we build these facilities, we've also got to put the beautiful equipment that go into them. Demand for metal cutting and similar machine tools is hitting its highest levels in a century in the United States of America. And all this new construction is building on a strong base with manufacturing activity last month reaching its best rate in many, many years. We've created more than 29,000 new jobs in the sector in 2026 so far, reversing years of decline in manufacturing employment. And year over year, manufacturing workers' wages actually went up 4.2%, where they went down under the Biden administration, and frankly, they've been higher in the industries where you've seen that decline in illegal immigration into our country, like construction and commercial trucking. And that brings me to why I'm here today. Because we're not just here to talk about the celebration and the good news and the numbers. We're here to announce that Cleveland Cliffs is making today, right here in Middletown, Ohio, a $1 billion investment in transformational manufacturing right here in our home.
Vice President J.D. Vance is taking the White House's working class message back to his home state of Ohio. Speaking to a crowd today, Vance said the administration's goals go beyond the factory or the office. He told supporters the administration doesn't just want people to have good jobs. He said they also want Americans to have peace, security, and the freedom that comes from being in control of their own lives.
It's not just about what happens in the factory. It's not just about what happens in the office. We don't just want you to have a good job, as much as I very much want that for every single person in this room. I want you to have peace, and I want you to have security, and I want you to have the real freedom that comes along with knowing that you are the Lord of your own manor. The great Southern
Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian is calling for an end to the conflict, but says it must be done from a position of strength. Meanwhile, Speaker Mohammad Khalibaf is issuing a warning. He says Iran will not endure continued economic pressure or a financial stranglehold. Both leaders are speaking as tensions remain high across the region. Vice President Kamala Harris is speaking out against the rise of deaths of despair in the United States. In a recent statement, the vice president rejected the term as too abstract. She argued that these deaths are the result of corporate greed. Harris claimed that those who prioritize profits over the country are responsible for the loss of these lives.
Now, economists have measured the ways in which the opioid crisis exploded in the very locations where jobs were shipped overseas. The open borders demanded by those same people brought some innocent people, of course it did. But we also know that it brought a lot of cartels, it brought the fentanyl trade, and it left us with millions of orphan children being raised by aggrieved grandparents. That was the story, of course, of my mama and papa. Now, the blood of these men and women, these so-called deaths of despair, I'm sure you've heard that phrase, but it's almost too abstract for me, because the blood of those people, in my view, it pools at the feet of those who would sell out their country for a cheap bottom line. Our politicians, and frankly the cronies in the private sector, people who didn't want to build in America like Cleveland Cliffs, but people who were happy to build overseas, they got rich, and communities like this one got poor. Politicians, think about this, who came to Washington with a few $1,000s in their bank account, left after decades of public service with millions in stock portfolios. And what did all of you get? What did we get? If you were lucky, your neighbor's job got shipped to a foreign country while your tax dollars got shipped to fraudsters. And if you were unlucky, as I know many people in this room were, you were left raising a grandchild while you were mourning the child killed by the very poison brought across that wide open border. But just as it was a policy choice to let that happen, my friends, it was a policy choice to reverse that decline. And in November of 2024, you made a choice to reverse 40 years of American decline and make Donald Trump the President of the United States.
Ohio Senator J.D. Vance says the state is seeing a shift in its labor market. Vance states that over the last 18 months, all net job growth in Ohio went to native-born Americans. He says this reverses a 4-year trend where growth favored foreign-born workers. Vance also highlighted the housing market. He claims the cost of a median-priced home nearly doubled under President Joe Biden. However, he says rents are now falling for the first time in more than 5 years. Vance says while there is still work to do, the American dream of homeownership is finally becoming accessible again.
The most proud of in the last 18 months, do you know that all net job growth over the past 18 months went to native-born Americans, reversing a trend for 4 years where it all went to other people. We got a lot of work to do, but we're making progress on all the things that matter the most. On the affordability question, we know that under Joe Biden, the cost of a median price home nearly doubled. Now, for the first time in over 5 years, rents are falling for the first time. We got a lot of work to do, but we're finally seeing that American dream of homeownership become accessible again.
A new documentary on Iran International is sparking a heated debate over how to handle officials of the Islamic Republic. The program, titled Court of History, examines the concept of transitional justice and the punishment of regime leaders. Some viewers are calling for the execution of officials for crimes committed. Others warn against repeating state violence and suggest forced labor as an alternative. Analysts say that without proportionate justice for figures like Mohseni Ejei and Salavati, grieving families may seek revenge, which could lead to widespread chaos. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is warning President Trump against the use of coal-powered data centers to fuel artificial intelligence. Kennedy, who leads the MAHA initiative, says relying on coal for AI infrastructure could undermine the administration's health and environmental goals. The warning comes as the government looks for ways to meet the massive energy demands of the AI boom. Kennedy argues that the pollution from coal plants poses a significant risk to public health. The White House has not yet responded to the concerns. Vice President J.D. Vance is highlighting the struggles of American workers during a rally in his hometown of Middletown, Ohio. Vance shared the story of Kevin Flanagan, a computer programmer who was laid off from his job. According to the vice president, Flanagan was forced to train a foreign replacement to receive his severance pay. Vance says that after his final day of work, Flanagan took his own life in his truck in the office parking lot.
A computer programmer by the name of Kevin Flanagan was let go at the bank that he worked at. And the bank, they told him, you're only going to get your severance package if you trained a foreign replacement to do your job instead. And it's a heartbreaking story because he did it. He dutifully did what he was asked to do. And on his last day, he packed up his things, he walked to the office parking lot, he got in his truck, and he shot himself.
A historic church in Cleveland was destroyed by fire Friday morning. The building had been a part of the city for more than 100 years, but officials say it was deserted at the time of the blaze. Firefighters responded to the scene to battle the flames. Details on the cause of the fire are not yet known.
In Cleveland, investigators are working to determine what caused a massive fire at a church on the city's east side. Flames shot through the roof of the vacant Friendship Baptist Church. This was just before 2 o'clock in the morning. Fire officials say that the fire came from multiple directions as trucks doused the building with water. It scattered ash and debris, and crews are expected to remain on scene for hours as investigators speak with witnesses and try to figure out how this fire started.
Senator J.D. Vance is calling on Ohio voters to support Republican candidates across the ballot. Speaking to supporters, Vance argued that the United States belongs to its citizens, not far-left radicals, who he says have taken over the Democratic Party. Vance questioned if the public still believes in the nation and its workers. He called for a government that serves American families instead of criminals.
I believe that this November, you and I and our fellow citizens, we're going to go to the ballot box and we're going to face a choice. Do we believe in the United States of America? Do we believe in the hardworking men and women who built this great nation? Do we demand that our government serve us and our children rather than fraudsters and criminals? Do we demand that the American president fight for the American people first? Then, my friends, I ask you, each and every one of you, to stand on your own conscience, to vote for patriots, to vote for people who are going to fight for you, to vote for John Husted for the United States Senate and for Vivek for the Governor of Ohio, get out there and fight for yourself by telling the far-left radicals who have taken over the Democratic Party, this is not your country, it's our country, and we're going to fight for it. God bless you, and thank you for having me.
Hello, Pittsburgh, still
Vice President Kamala Harris is in Middletown, Ohio, to announce a major industrial investment. Cleveland Cliffs is committing $1 billion to transformational manufacturing in the region. The vice president says the investment will bring a significant boost to the local economy and the manufacturing sector in her home state.
We're not just here to talk about the celebration and the good news and the numbers. We're here to announce that Cleveland Cliffs is making today, right here in Middletown, Ohio, a $1 billion investment in transformational manufacturing right here in our home. Now that's going to protect and create tons of new jobs. We're going to upgrade the iron-making furnace. We're going to implement cutting-edge new technology to optimize furnace operation and improve Middletown's air qualities, because as much as the far left says that you can't have industry, but also clean air and water, we're going to show in this facility that's exactly what you can have. You can have both of it, and you can have it in spades with smart leadership.
Vice President J.D. Vance is back in his hometown of Middletown, Ohio. He visited the steel facility where his grandfather worked as a welder for 40 years. While there, the vice president spoke about the Trump administration's America First economic agenda. Vance called it an amazing thing to return to the plant as the vice president of the United States.
My grandfather, I called him Papaw, and he toiled in this very place to give our family the little extras, like I said, for nearly 4 decades. Now, I'm very honored because the welders of this facility made me this incredible, beautiful artisan plaque to commemorate me coming here. And those of you who don't know, Papaw was a welder, so it's particularly meaningful for me and for all the welders behind me and in front of me. Thank you all. It means a great deal. But Papaw was a welder in this place for 40 years. And today his grandson stands here as the vice president of these United States. It's an amazing thing.
At least 159 people are dead in southwest China following the impact of Typhoon Maisak. Officials say the storm struck the region in July, leaving a trail of destruction. Recovery efforts continue as authorities work to assess the full extent of the damage. Vice President J.D. Vance has announced a $1 billion investment in a Cleveland Cliffs steel mill in Middletown, Ohio. The funding will be used to upgrade the iron-making furnace and implement new technology to optimize operations. Officials say the project is designed to improve local air quality while protecting existing jobs and creating new ones. Vance says the investment proves that heavy industry can coexist with clean air and water.
To announce that Cleveland Cliffs is making today, right here in Middletown, Ohio, a $1 billion investment in transformational manufacturing right here in our home. Now that's going to protect and create tons of new jobs. We're going to upgrade the iron-making furnace. We're going to implement cutting-edge new technology to optimize furnace operation and improve Middletown's air qualities, because as much as the far left says that you can't have industry, but also clean air and water, we're going to show in this facility that's exactly what you can have. You can have both of it, and you can have it in spades with smart leadership. Now, this is only possible because of my friend Chris Wright's and the president's energy dominance agenda. And I got to say, it's great to have a business that is putting power into the grid rather than just taking it away, and that's exactly what we're going to do here in Middletown. But we also recognize in our administration that real dignity, it's not just about what happens in the factory. It's not just about what happens in the office. We don't just want you to have a good job, as much as I very much want that for every single person in this room. I want you to have peace, and I want you to have security, and I want you to have the real freedom that comes along with knowing that you are the Lord of your own manor. You're the great Southern populist. Probably most of you in the room don't know who I'm talking about, but he's an interesting guy, kind of a crazy guy. His name was Huey Long, and he once said, "Every man a king" was the goal of his political program.
Former President Donald Trump is criticizing Democratic policies regarding immigration and labor. In a recent statement, Trump claimed Democrats have prioritized foreign workers and fraudsters over American citizens and taxpayers. He argued that while Democrats put others first, his administration focuses on putting Americans first.
This is not, unfortunately, JFK or FDR's Democrat Party. Hell, it's not even Bill Clinton's Democrat Party. This is the party of diversity quotas rather than opportunity for all. This is the party, the Democrat Party, of graduate students rather than the union and non-union workers who make this facility run. It's sometimes actually hard to understand, like, what do these modern Democrats actually stand for? But look what they say. Pay close attention, and they'll leave these little hints of what they actually care about. Now, El Sayed, this guy running for Senate in Michigan, he once argued, not too long ago, that criticisms of Sharia law were rooted in white supremacy. I'd love to go back in time and tell my papaw that there's a man who claims to stand for working people who says not only should we have Sharia law, but if you criticize it, you're a white supremacist. That's not my papaw's Democrat Party, my friends. Now, I served for 2 years in the Senate with Sherrod Brown. He was a friendly enough guy, but he was a man who claimed to represent this state, but never once raised his voice against Joe Biden's border crisis or against the inflation that was brought on by Joe Biden underinvesting and trying to destroy American industry. If you look at it at every step of the way, these Democrats have voted for foreign workers and fraudsters over American citizens and hard-paying taxpayers. They have voted for corporations who sent jobs overseas rather than good American businesses who invested in you, invested in your communities, and increased your jobs. Who do these Democrats put first? Everyone else. You know who the Trump administration puts first? Americans. You, my friends, that's who we fight for.
Former Playboy playmate Audra Christensen says she feels like a sitting duck after repeated attempts to contact the FBI. In an interview with News Nation, Christensen claims she was assaulted by Jeffrey Epstein and threatened by Ghislaine Maxwell. She says she has reached out to federal authorities multiple times but has not received a response. Christensen says she is speaking out now to highlight her experience and the lack of communication from investigators.
Former Playboy playmate Audra Christensen, who says she was sexually assaulted by Jeffrey Epstein and threatened by Ghislaine Maxwell, says she still lives in fear. And that's why the public pressure for survivors to name the names of those that participated in Epstein's sex trafficking network gives her great pause.
What would happen? Nothing's happened thus far. So then we name the people and then we have a bigger target on our back. It's like, I feel like a sitting duck. You know, it's like these are very rich and powerful people that can do anything and everything. And here I'm sitting here waiting to see if my phone would ever ring from the FBI. And that's so sad.
Christensen said she told Hugh Hefner and he called the FBI in 2005, but nothing was ever done. She called the FBI again in 2020 because of threats she says she and her family received.
Nothing came from that. And you know, I sat and I waited for a few weeks and I hired an attorney because I wanted a sit-down meeting with the FBI. She called the FBI and she said they have no intention of speaking with you.
News Nation contacted the FBI multiple times regarding Christensen's claims. They declined to comment.
FBI agents have raided the home of former Congressman Eric Swalwell. Investigators seized a computer and a cell phone during the operation. Sources say the move is part of a federal inquiry into allegations of sexual assault. Details on the investigation are still emerging.
The FBI raided former Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell's home as part of an investigation into sexual assault allegations made against him, and they seized his phone, his computer, and here's what we know now.